in every moment. You can feel it. Life. Human right members. From life to life. What are human rights? Find out at humanrights.org.
Okay, kids, here we are at the slavery exhibit. Now, as you can see, the slaves were kidnapped.
Okay, because of time, we might not be able to watch all the human rights. At your own time, you can go through it. You can Google it. It's online. This was found on. Okay, because of time, you might not be able to take all the rights. You have about 30 of them. They are online. You can actually Google them and watch at your own convenience and you see them. But while we're here, because of time, because time is not on our side, we have to leave here latest 2:30 and we have to depart, and it's just less than 45 minutes to go. So let me hand over the mic to him so that sorry, let me quickly do a little bit introduction there. He is the president of Human Rights, that's International Youth Human Rights. He's the president's chapter in Nigeria. So he's the president, and I believe he's going to tell you more. I wanted to answer you. I wanted to conduct this section, but when they told me about him, I like, oh, he will be in a better position to do it. So let's put our hands together for him.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about my voice. What I just want to tell us in this program is that okay, let me go ahead. Like he already said, Duke Ifeakachuku, not Ifeakachuku. Someone want to correct what he said. Ifeakachuku. I'm the National Coordinator of Human Rights International. I'll start by telling us about our organization. Though I would have speak this because of our time, what we're supposed to do is you are forced to set perspectives. Youth for Human Rights International is a non-profit registered in Los Angeles, USA. And we have a chapter here in Nigeria, which is called Youth for Human Rights Nigerian Chapter. And the Nigerian chapter of Youth for Human Rights currently has about 27 chapters. I mean, we have presence in about 27 states out of 36 states in Nigeria. We started not quite long, and by the grace of God, we are making progress because we have a goal of establishing at least a chapter in each of the 36 states of Nigeria. And we have a very good working relationship with some government agencies like National Human Rights Commission, especially the South West Zonal Office at Ikeja, and some other zonal offices and state offices all over Nigeria. Our purpose at Youth for Human Rights International is to educate people about their human rights. To educate people. Why do we do this? We do this because we want people to be inspired. To be inspired to become advocates of tolerance and peace. Our first speaker here talked about justice. Our woman from National Rights Commission, she has said almost everything I want to say in this program. Notwithstanding, I will be giving my own presentation from another angle to make us understand most of what she has said already. And I will be speaking about the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I will tell us more about it. Because in any discussion about human rights, if you don't talk about the 1948 document, it tendency for people to misunderstand what you are saying is already there. Why? Because the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights is actually one of the most fundamental human rights instruments that exists globally today. Though it is not the first, it is not the second. But today, it is the only human rights document that enjoys the status of being universal. 1948 is a very, very historical date when we talk about human rights. And we cannot start talking about 1948 without looking back what happened before 1948 that actually brought this document into existence. We can go as far back as 1215. We can even go as far back as 539 BC. What happened in all these days? That's the next question to ask ourselves. What happened in 539 BC? In 539 BC, something happened. There is this man that is called Cyrus the Great. He actually conquered Babylon, and after he conquered Babylon, he did something very, very strategic, very, very historical. After he conquered Babylon, against the expectations of people, he freed all the slaves. After setting all the slaves free, he made a comment, he made a statement, and this statement today was inscribed on a clay stone. He said something that people should have the right to choose their own religion. And that happened to be one of the first statements about human rights that was ever recorded in the history of mankind. People should have the right to choose their own religion. And that was what motivated him to free all the slaves. Then from there, human rights began to spread to other parts of the world, to Rome, to India, to Greece, and other parts of the world. That was the first stage in the development of human rights. Then by 1628, something also happened. There's what is called the Petition of Rights. This Petition of Rights was also signed, but before 1628, in 1215, there was another human rights document that was signed, and this document was called the Magna Carta. I also want to make it clear to us that human rights, as we know it today, it has a very, very long history. And when we understand this history, we know why we need to cherish our rights as human beings. From 539 BC down to 1215, down to 1628, down to the American Civil War that led to the independence of America in 1778. Down to the French Revolution, 1789. Each and every of these global events, they were like a step towards the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. During the French Revolution in 1789, there is a man called Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet, it's a very small book, something like this, just a pamphlet. He wrote a pamphlet which is titled The Rise of Man. And that was another significant improvement to codify certain freedoms, certain entitlements which people should be entitled to. But one thing is this, some of these previous instruments, they were not universal. They were just in Europe, in Greece, in India, in Rome, in one country or the other. They do not enjoy universal status. But they were a significant step towards the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I want to talk about. Because of our time, after the French Revolution and several other global events that occurred in the history of mankind, in 1914, the First World War broke out. Some of us know about this. It's a very long story which I cannot tell us in this gathering. The First World War. And when the war came to an end, the international community then was already breaking away from being Eurocentric. All talk of being Eurocentric, the global system before 1914 was so Eurocentric in the sense that European powers dominated the international system. In fact, Africa exists, but we don't know what was Africa before that period. So the international system was Eurocentric, which means Europe was at the center of the world. Now, what happened? When the First World War came to an end, there were plans to ensure that there would not be anything like the Second World War. But the plan failed. We should be asking ourselves this question, why did it fail? the League of Nations was established to prevent the outbreak of another war. But the League of Nations failed. It failed because it gave conditions under which nations of the world should go to war. The League of Nations did not say that war is illegal. No, it saw war as being legal. But it gave conditions under which countries should go to war. And that was why the Second World War had to break out. Because some countries actually met those conditions. Countries like Germany, yes, they were eager to meet it because Germany was nursing this aggressive attitude. Adolf Hitler had this motive to be the president of the entire world. So why won't the Second World War break out? Now the Second World War broke out. It did not just break out, it was very, very devastating. The atrocities that were committed during the Second World War were so great. One like the First World War that was fought with bows and arrows, with knives, with swords. The Second World War witnessed sophisticated weapons like atomic bomb, dangerous weapons. So after the war ended in 1945, the victorious powers came together. The same way they came together during the First World War. Like I said, the world was Eurocentric before then. It was entirely an European affair. Even the United States of America was not a key player before the First World War. Something prompted America to join the war. When we say a world war, it's not because the entire world is fighting. European powers were fighting among themselves, but they were using their colonies. Like we know, European countries, they have colonies all over the world. So when they are engaging each other in war, they use their colonies. That's how it becomes a world war. So America was forced to take part in this war. When the war ended, America went back to its policy of, what do we call it? Policy of what you can tell me? The policy that the US normally adopts. Okay, no, this is something I want you to be interactive. That's why I'm trying to pop up some questions. America is to practice what is called a policy of isolationism, which is staying away from the rest of the world. And the reason why America do this is because of our experience when America was still a colony. You know, America was once a colony under Britain. America got her independence in 1778. After this war that began in 1774. After that war, America told itself that never again will the US not have anything to do with European powers. But seeing what was happening in the world, America stepped out to take part in the First World War. That was under President Woodrow Wilson. America had no choice. Now, when the war came to an end, the League of Nations was established. The League of Nations itself failed. I'm trying to call the long story short. Now, when the Second World War came to an end in 1945, the victorious powers, of which America is also a member, like I said, America went back to policy of isolationism, but it came out again during the Second World War. Something also prompted America to come out, which I'm going to tell us. It was because Japan actually struck the US. The US was staying away from the war. They were fighting themselves, but Japan struck the US after they have defeated France, Britain, and the others. They struck the US because they saw the US as another potential power. They struck the US as Pearl Harbor. Not knowing that, all this while the US has been staying away. America has been very, very strategic. America has been very, America was not just idle. America has been looking to it that anything will come, that this war will definitely come into its corridor. So America was busy preparing ahead, preparing technology, creating atomic bombs and sophisticated weapons just to ensure that should this war get to its corridor, America will not be caught off guard. And after Japan struck America, Pearl Harbor, America did something that this world never knew was possible. And that was why today, people fear the United States of America. People have given the United States of America that label, that recognition as the most powerful country of the world, really, even economically and otherwise. What did America do? America struck back at Japan by dropping the atomic bomb at two of Japan's cities called Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, after this, Japan and its allies had no choice than to surrender. That was how the Second World War came to an end. So when it came to an end, the victorious powers came together they came together to ensure that never again will the world experience such a devastating occurrence. And one of the things they did was they established the United Nations in 1945. The United Nations was established for a specific purpose. Some of us will think of the United Nations as just being an organization of different countries. It was established for a specific purpose, and that purpose was clearly stated in the United Nations Charter, the 1945 Charter that established the United Nations. The purpose of the UN is to prevent future outbreak of war, according to the Charter, which twice in the history of mankind has brought untold hardship. And the purpose of the UN was informed by the fact that the UN believed so much in fundamental human rights. Because before 1945, we did not have this human rights on a global level. Like I said, it was restricted to each state, each country, each province. So, apart from creating the 1945 United Nations, another step that was taken by the Victorian powers was to create a commission, a United Nations Human Rights Commission, and this commission was charged with the responsibility of actually drafting a document which will be called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, drafted in 1948, adopted, and it has been circulated since 1948. All the member countries of the United Nations has ratified this document. But there is one thing I want to make it clear to us today. And this is the fact that there is a wide gap between the articulation of this document and its actual accomplishments. There is a very wide gap. What I'm trying to say is the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights actually has a lot of promises for mankind. Please, Mr. Daniel, can you give us a copy of the Universal Declaration? I want to show something to us. Mr. Daniel, please help us to bring up a copy of the Universal Declaration. Now, the 1948 Universal Declaration, let us have a copy of it, please. I just want to point something out towards there. But before then, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights was actually written and countries of the world ratified it. But the history of this Universal Declaration is one thing I want us to understand clearly, because apart from ratifying this document and countries going further to integrate this document in their national constitutions, there is a wide gap between its articulation and its achievements. What am I trying to say? This program is a human rights education with the theme, use know your human rights. Some questions must have come up in our mind. I'm so impressed to see youth coming down to this program, all because you want to know your human rights. Like I said, my organization, we are into human rights education, and we go to schools, we go to churches, we go to public places to sensitize people, to educate people about their human rights. And we have a reason for doing this. So I was so impressed seeing youth coming out for this program. Please, can we put a round of applause for ourselves, please? Yes, please, let's make it loud. It's a very, very commendable effort. Now, what I want us to know is this. We need to know about this 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The chairperson that drafted it, she asked a question, and I love her quotation so much. She said, "Where after war do universal human rights begin?" That is the question, and that's the question that we should be asking ourselves. Where do these human rights begin? Where do they come from? What rights do I have as a person? How do they affect me as a person? How do they impact me as a member of society? These are the questions that we should be asking ourselves as youth, as young people. What are human rights? Our Money for National Rights Commission has dealt with a lot of this already. So I will focus more on telling us about this Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the articles that were contained in this document. In the case of Nigeria, I tell people that our generation as Nigerians, we do not have human rights. And I have a reason why I say this, and I'm going to tell us our reason. The reason is because if you point any human right, I can tell you how such a right has been violated or how such a right has been taken away from us. Take for instance, in Nigeria, you can say you have freedom of speech, right? But freedom of that speech, is it guaranteed? It is not. It is not. So what we are saying is that the white gap that exists. And it is really the youth that must do something to close up this gap. They said freedom is never freely given by the oppressors. Those who are violating our rights, they will never freely give us freedom that we need. Most Nigerians, we know that we have these rights. But even in the face of violations, we have failed to do nothing about it. Why? Is it because we are scared? Is it because we do not know that we have these rights? What exactly is the problem? What exactly is the situation? These are the questions that begs for answers. So as youth, the very first step we need to take is to know our rights. But we don't only have to know our rights and stop there. You have to know your rights. More importantly, you have to take responsibility for standing up for your rights and those of other people. That's what it means to have a human right. Not just having it and always seeking for your right to be defended. No, you must take responsibility for defending the rights of other people. Now, the point I want to make is this. I said earlier that our generation